Here we go. I'm off mute. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Shutdown Line 5 live stream as part of Earth Week. I'm Natalie Cook. I'm an organizer with the Beyond Dirty Fuels campaign at Sierra Club. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm based in Minneapolis on Dakota land. I'm so glad that you've joined us tonight. Our movement to shut down Line 5 continues to grow, and whether you're a longtime leader or this is your first time showing up in this movement space, welcome. We're glad you're here. And note, if you're watching live, we can see any comments you put in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. So feel free to add comments, let us know where you're joining from today, put any questions in the chat, and I'll be doing my best to compile your questions for the Q&A segment at the end. Tonight, you'll hear from folks who have been fighting Enbridge and working hard to see Line 5 shut down. This movement is full of powerful and amazing leaders. Tonight, we'll hear from just a few folks about updates in their states and communities. We'll learn about the Fish for the Future Community Art Project and World Record that activists have been working on. And we're also going to hear about the importance of art in our movement space. There will be lots of ways that we'll be sharing where you can get involved in the coming days and weeks. And first, I'm going to give a short overview. So Justin, if you could put up the slides. I always find maps helpful, so that's where we're going to start today. So Line 5 is an oil pipeline that runs from Superior, Wisconsin to Sarnia, Canada. Before Superior, much of the oil that moves through the pipeline, not all of it, but much of it, is mined from the Alberta tar sands fields in Canada. The picture you see on the left is from tar sands mining. This is a really carbon intensive and land and water destroying process. Then the mined tar sands oil travels through other pipelines in Canada and Minnesota and onto Line 5. Line 5 is old. It's over 70 years old, and communities along the route have said enough is enough. And there are two places we're going to be focusing on tonight. They're both in red on the map. There's the Bad River Reservation. We'll hear from Joe Bates, where the tribal government and community has said that Enbridge must leave their watershed, that this is too risky for their community's water. And we'll hear from Anne about the Straits of Mackinac, where Enbridge continues to put this critical and sensitive part of the Great Lakes at risk. We'll see how Line 5 looks on the bottom of the lake now and learn about their risky tunnel project. So this is just sort of a zoomed out picture for you, and we're going to zoom in to different places with our speakers. I'm going to turn it over to Anne Wywoody, a longtime leader with the Sierra Club, to learn about Enbridge's proposed tunnel.
Thank you, Natalie. My name's Anne Wywoody. I live outside of Lansing, Michigan. My pronouns are she, her, and I live on the ceded lands of the Anishinaabe peoples. First, for those not familiar with it, the Great Lakes actually hold 84% of the surface water, surface fresh water in North America. The potential impact of an oil spill at any point along the line from Wisconsin through Michigan would be devastating. These are resources that are providing drinking water for more than 40 million people, provide natural resources, including fisheries that are held in treaty for the tribal peoples of this region, and support billions of dollars of economic value. Next slide, please. The Enbridge Line 5 crosses the Straits of Mackinac in what has been described as the worst possible location in the Great Lakes for a potential disaster. In the lower left-hand corner, you'll see the Great Lakes and the box around the Straits of Mackinac, where Lakes Huron and Michigan meet. The dual pipelines, the pipeline splits into two to go onto the bottomlands of the Straits of Mackinac. The water in this area moves at an incredibly strong set of currents, said to be about 10 times as much as Niagara Falls. And this is an area where an oil spill could be devastating. It's been estimated it would contaminate as much as 700 miles of shoreline and shut down the water intakes for many communities, destroy the fisheries, etc. In 2018, a dragged anchor actually gashed the pipelines in 3 different spots. And then 2 years later, the anchor of a boat doing work for Enbridge actually knocked over a support. And the next slide will show you that. This was knocked over as a result of an anchor being dragged through the area. Enbridge repeatedly claims that despite the damage to the pipeline, that it is safe to continue pumping 540,000 barrels of crude oil and natural gas liquids through the pipeline every day. But the history of Enbridge with oil spills is really problematic. There have been more than 30 oil spills on Line 5 alone since 1968. And some of the largest oil spills inland in the United States have been on Enbridge lines, including in Michigan on the Kalamazoo River, where they contaminated a total of 35 miles with crude oil. In 2018, and the concern about the pipeline was beginning to grow, and Enbridge struck a deal with then Governor Rick Snyder to build a tunnel under the Straits of Mackinac as an alternative where they theoretically would house the oil pipeline and other utilities. They wanted this deal because the incoming Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Attorney General Dana Nessel had both committed to shut down the pipelines on the bottoms of the strait, citing the enormous danger this poses to the Great Lakes. The efforts by the Attorney General and the Governor to enforce provisions of the easement that the state of Michigan holds for this pipeline have been caught up in court for the past 5 years. And today there was a decision handed down from the appeals court, federal appeals court, that we're still assessing, but the litigation continues at the state level by Attorney General Nessel to shut down the pipeline. Meanwhile, Enbridge has applied for permits to build the tunnel underneath the straits from both the state of Michigan and from the Army Corps of Engineers. And there are many problems with this proposed pipeline, but recently, one of the things that has become particularly problematic is that President Trump has signed an executive order calling for an emergency energy order that has been interpreted by the Army Corps of Engineers as a reason to speed up the permitting of this tunnel underneath the straits. So that means that the environmental impact statement that they've been working on would be short-circuited, and the potential for public input would be significantly reduced. The permits for the tunnel from the state agencies, however, are still being considered and would still have a tremendous impact on the ability to build a tunnel. And they're currently being reviewed by the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy for completeness. Soon we expect a proposed permit to be put out for public comment, and we will be urging people to submit their comments on that permit. But problems with the tunnel have been identified in many respects, among them that the bottomlands, the soil and bedrock under the bottomlands are very uneven and very problematic. No tunnel like this has ever been built. And there are concerns from tunnel experts that this could in fact be a situation where methane would seep into the tunnel and potentially cause an explosion. There are many other issues that we won't go into right now, but at this point, because the Trump administration has basically undermined efforts to have a complete review through the Army Corps of Engineers. We are emphasizing the importance of the state of Michigan doing its job. And we're going to be asking you to call Governor Gretchen Whitmer today in order to ask her to take on the full responsibility of assuring that the Great Lakes are protected from Line 5. The next slide will provide us with the script for a phone call that we're going to ask you to make. And I'm going to make one right now to Governor Whitmer's office. And I invite you to do likewise. And I want to show you how this is going to work. It's pretty easy. You just call the number and you're likely to get just an answering machine, but that's fine. You're going to leave a message for the governor there. So I'm going to go ahead and dial 1-888-676. Got it wrong. 886763967. All right, I'm going to listen. And we'll be finding out.
Hi, it's Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Thank you for calling my office. Your concerns and ideas are important to me as we work together to build a brighter future for Michigan. Please leave a message and my team will follow up with you as soon as possible. To request assistance with state government or share your opinion with Governor Whitmer, please press 1 to leave a voicemail. Please say your name and email address, then press 0 to continue.
My name's Ann Wywoody. My email is taywoody@gmail.com. And I'm calling today to urge Governor Whitmer to protect our water by directing the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy to deny the permit for Enbridge's proposed Line 5 tunnel under the Straits of Mackinac. The Line 5 pipeline is an imminent threat, and building a tunnel to house it is no solution. Construction could destroy wetlands, disrupt aquatic habitats, and perpetuate our reliance on fossil fuels during a critical time for climate action. Worse, the tunnel poses a risk of explosions from methane and shifts financial liability to Michigan taxpayers for 99 years. I urge Governor Whitmer to ensure that Michigan prioritizes water quality, ecosystem health, and a sustainable future by rejecting the Enbridge's tunnel scheme. Thank you for listening to my concerns. All right, there you go. And you can do the same very easily. I'm going to pass it back to Natalie at this point, and thanks for your efforts. We look forward to hearing from you and your efforts to reach out to Governor Whitmer.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you for showing us that it's really so doable and easy to make these important phone calls. We know that they're important. So jot down that phone number, make the call right now, jot it down and call later tonight. We'll also, if you registered with us, be sending you an email for that phone number as well. Now I'm going to turn it over to Joe Bates, a tribal elder with Bad River Band. So Joe, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the beautiful pictures you've put together for us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to participate this evening. My name is Joe Bates. I live and work on the Bad River Reservation. I'm a tribal elder, hunter, fisherman, gatherer, and I've been involved in protecting the water now for many decades is what it's adding up to be. But I threw together a few pictures to kind of give you a little bit of background of what's happening here in Bad River. In 1950, when this pipeline was first installed in the ground across the reservation, it was done between the Bureau of Indian Affairs and a company named Lakehead Pipeline at the time. They felt that this was a for-profit route that was determined to go take the shortcut south of Lake Superior and around through the Straits, as it was economically beneficial to the pipeline company instead of blasting a route up and around the Great Lakes to the north. But over the years, what's happened is in 1950, when 1953, when this pipeline was installed, it 300 feet from the riverbank itself. And what happened is over the years, the river has lived. It's lived its own life. And we have always allowed the river to exist. We've coexisted with the river for centuries that our people have been here. And if we could go to the next slide, please. We have this is our new water tower that we had installed, and it was situated. I don't know if it was planned that way, but you hit a straight stretch coming through the reservation, and for approximately 4 miles, you see this big blue dot that looks like a big drop of water just hanging in the air as you proceed west on Highway 2. And beyond it, you'll see our clinic that we have. Also, since this picture was taken, we have a new Head Start facility that is back to the right in the wooded area there. Also, we had a brand new clinic put in. Now, this is all important because we have a small tributary that runs right through our community. If you go to the next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. This here is why we're here, okay? This is the Bad River Sloughs. We harvest our wild rice in this location right here, and it sustained our ancestors for generations. This was in our prophecy for our ancestors to travel west, follow the water until you find a food that grows on water. This is what our ancestors found. They settled at La Pointe, which is on Madeline Island, and for many, many years, that was the mainstay. Line 5 directly threatens the reason why we're here. Our Treaty of 1854 guarantees us a forever homeland without threat of forced removal. And Enbridge threatens that. They threaten us with forced removal. We could go to the next slide, please. And here's one of the reasons why. I know this picture is kind of weird. I took it at about 190 feet above. What you were looking at is down at the bottom of the picture is the bottom of the ravine. The black, it actually looks like a black snake. That is where a portion of that ravine sloughed off. And it left approximately a 42-foot length of pipe that was just hanging in the air. It had no support whatsoever underneath it. What happens? Can you see my mouse there? Is my mouse visible? No? Okay. Well, slightly, if you follow that curving, that's just drain tile with riprap. There's a beaver pond that's right up here in the top. Every spring, this beaver pond fills up. It's just beyond the trees. When that fills up, it trickles right down, comes right down the slope. And over the years, that little beaver pond sloughed all that clay right out of there and left it exposed. And if we had a leak there, a rupture at that point, that little ravine goes directly into a stream called Denemy Creek. Denemy Creek flows 200 yards just east of my home, and that slowly winds right through the heart of our community of Odana. Denemy Creek does. that could potentially push us, our whole neighborhood out, that whole community area out of their existing homes. Next slide, please. Here, this is the meander. This is where we have an imminent threat of rupture of the pipeline. You can kind of see the corridor there, where the corridor is that it looks like a line going through the woods. And where it comes real close to the right side of that picture, that is the location where the pipeline runs, and the river is right there. At one time, it was over 300 feet. Now, today, that pipeline is 10 to 11 feet from the river. We watched videos in federal court that was presented as evidence of an imminent threat of rupture, where an entire mature tree and supporting bank was completely engulfed in water, by the water, as Natural Resources had one of their drone flying over, and it was an unbelievable capture of nature doing its business on this pipeline. And everyone in federal court just let out a gasp when they saw that tree get swallowed up just like that. And every time we have a high water event, we're going to have scrubbing action across the top. We have, I have photos where it's actually creating channels across the top of the soil, and you have the bank being cut away from the current. So at this location, we don't necessarily need an actual flood. Just high water, just to saturate the bank, is going to make the bank slough off. More of that bank's going to go right into the river, get washed out, and pretty soon it'll be into the fill of the pipe. Once that happens, it'll just be like a vacuum, and it'll suck it right out of there. The pipe will be open, exposed, and the weight of the pipe itself can cause that thing to rupture. Enough unsupported pipe, we will have a rupture, and it could be catastrophic, just like Kalamazoo. This is a 45-minute response from the time the oil hits the water until it gets to Lake Superior. Superior, Wisconsin, where they have their equipment to respond to this location, is about approximately an hour and a half. So before they even get here, this oil is going to be in Lake Superior. It will be taken out into the current. Apostle Islands are at risk. Madeline Island's at risk. The communities up the north shore of Lake Superior, they're all at risk. The Ashland is at risk. Bayfield, Washburn, they all get their water, get their drinking water from either Lake Superior, Chequamegon Bay, and a rupture here would be detrimental. So what they ended up doing was there was a plan put together. If you go to the next slide, please. There was a plan put together. This I took this picture here in 2013, and all of the trees that you see along the riverbank, those are now gone. It's all the way back up to, if you look in the center of the picture, you see two dark items. Those are solar panels. Those are cameras that are located right there at the pipeline. I don't know if you can see the markers, but there's little markers there. Each of those markers are 5 feet. So when I took this picture in 23, you can see how close or how far it is. Now, this location here, we're down to 2 markers. two markers in this one location, and they came up with a plan to try to slow the erosion of the bank. And it's called a timberjack or a log jack project, where they build a triangular base out of redwood pine logs, where they went up and they clear cutted a couple acres of land, and they built these. It's like a triangular frame on the bottom. Then they put a huge boulder on top of that, and then they erect angled more logs like this, angled up, 3 or 4 of them, kind of like a teepee shape. That's all fastened together. And what they ended up doing was they'd stack them into the river then, one way, wide bottom on the bottom, and then they'd invert them so that they interlock going back in. If you go to the next photo, please. Oh, there we go. We have a picture of a log jack right there. And actually, they built 230 of these, I believe. And that was the helicopter in the background that they used for lifting the log jacks from this staging area here. And then they took them out to the river. If you go to the next slide, please. And this here was a photo I captured. I kind of zoomed in on it. I was up a ways. You can see the posts now, how the posts are all marked out. You have a better view of the posts. And this is the majority of the log jacks, that the way they have it all stacked in there. And that is supposed to prevent bank erosion, so that Enbridge can still legally trespass our reservation and kind of rest in peace a little bit, because right now, if this does what it's intended to do, Enbridge will, my belief is that Enbridge will continue to run that pipe, the product in that pipe, even after the June 26th deadline that they were given to stop the flow of oil across our reservation. They right now have a legal means by the federal court to continue pumping their 540,000 barrels of crude oil across our reservation, and continue to get their unjust enrichment, I guess we would say. But that's where we're at. And another update. The DNR issued permits to Enbridge for doing their reroute. They did get those. And 3 days after prior to them issuing the permits for the reroute, they were on the site in Jefferson County, Wisconsin, examining and investigating a 69,300 gallon oil spill on their Line 6 that runs through Jefferson County. They gave them the okay to go ahead and do that reroute after they are already inspecting a current leak on another one of Enbridge's pipeline systems. But, in summary, we have coexisted with the lake for as long as our people have been here. We've never tried to change her. We've always let her live her life the way she wants to live. She wants to move here, let her move there. She wants to move here, let her move there. She provides medicines. She provides food. She provided our ancestors with everything to survive since we have been here. And Enbridge, they threaten our very existence. We want them out. And we're not the only ones that want them out. We have many, many, many allies that want them out. Line 5 needs to be shut down. It's too old. too unsafe. And I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate your overview and all that you do. And I think the drone footage you capture, it's such a powerful, there's such powerful images and so important for helping us really understand closer to understand like what's happening. And it's a reminder that visuals are such an important way that many of us learn and understand and feel inspired to act. And so we're also now going to talk about what does art and activism, how are those two things tied, just like photographs and drone footage and how that all ties together. So I'm going to turn it over to Whitney to share about art and activism.
Hi everyone, my name is Whitney Terrell and I use she, her pronouns. I'm joining you from Minnesota, which is the homeland of the Dakota people and also is home to Anishinaabe or Ojibwe people and homelands of the Ho-Chunk as well and other Native nations. So really happy to be with you. Sometimes I think people need another way to approach a lot of the topics that we're thinking about. So the combination of art and organizing, especially in our movement, has been such an awesome pairing. So many of our marches, there's always been a creative practice. I think the shop, especially that I'll mention, there is a connection, for example, to the Wisconsin community and people who founded one here. So in my creative practice, in addition to being an organizer, I really love printmaking, photography, painting, and I'm exploring the topics of environmental justice and my heritage, and then also thinking a lot about how to bring community along with me. So it's very much a public art practice as well as like a sort of traditional fine arts practice. Next slide. I got my start in and passion for public art through murals. And I worked with a group called Hope Community here in Minneapolis. And we asked the community about their ideas of the Hennepin Energy Recovery Center, which is a trash burner in the Twin Cities. But we were definitely connecting. How does water connect here? How does place connect and place making and place keeping so that people could share their ideas? And we wove in elements of care, whether it was community meals or community painting times. So we made sure that art was accessible to anybody who needed it. And some of the murals you can see are at a local a couple of local schools, and also some other community places, which I'll talk about next. Next slide. I also found a lot of community. And so I think training, if you're interested in art and activism, it's really awesome to look for opportunities to be a teaching artist, to build community with other artists who have similar viewpoints as you. You can see there's like a lot of different places, from High Point Center for Printmaking, Creatives After Curfew, which emerged out of the tragedy of George Floyd's murder and trying to build community around that. I mentioned Hope Community in the mural program, the Trickster program, which is about art and social justice. So having peers, especially in different disciplines, will kind of fuel that creative energy. And you can see I'm involved in some with Pangea Theater and like some other curatorial projects that I've sought out. Next slide. I can't speak. We were also thinking about general themes with some of the artists that we worked on the murals with. And so what is the fruit, for example, on top I painted, all of that is indigenous to the African continent, and thinking about what are the futures that we imagine. So this is an example of Afrofuturism and inviting people to think about what are they dreaming about? What do they need to be healthy? Next slide. This is an example from Little Earth, which is a very unique tribal and housing community here in the Twin Cities. It represents over 47 different tribal nations and communities. And basically, with permission, I asked this little boy's nickname is Junior. So asking Junior if he and his parents would allow him to be painted in the mural. But we took kind of the meaning of the protest and put that into a mural, which is now on the entrance for the Little Earth Residence Center. So there's ways that you can kind of capture and translate these moments and get communities' consent and buy-in. Next slide. This is again the example of working with youth and community to imagine environmental justice and using the idea of like mushrooms and mycelium as a symbol of resistance. Next slide. A lot of the work also, for example, what we looked for ways to make it visible and important through the Sierra Club Journal as an example. We worked with youth to help us touch it up before it was installed in their high school. Next slide. And so this is an example of that mural. Next slide. And, oh, next, sorry. And so I explained this one. This is outside of Little Earth's Residence Center. And there was a ceremony at the march that honored the 4 directions. And then, of course, like there's reference to the jingle dress as a sign of like how people pray and the use of tobacco, all kind of reference to medicines or healings that people would want to see. And we actually did win this fight. This is the Urban Farm fight in South Minneapolis. So this is kind of a commemoration of that. And I was really proud to be one of the lead designers. Next slide. And then also we collaborate with art spaces. And so asking community members, what do they know about a topic? And then letting them get started in art. Art is something that everyone can do. And so you'll see that there's, of course, organizers and community members getting started on the left. And then in the center is a mother-daughter pair who had a lot of skills in painting. And then they were so into it that they came to my studio later to finish all of their work. Next slide. With a great message, which says oil sucks, which we all agree with here. And next slide. Just the last thing I'll say is I didn't get to protest DAPL myself directly, but having gone back when there was the EIS process happening there so many years later, it was really powerful to make work that honored late activists who have passed since 2016. LaDonna Brave, Bull Allard, Joy Braun, Deborah White Plume, William Braun Otter, and specifically Winia Locke and Natalie. Thank you for the connection. But Winia Locke was a part of asking for this message to be made. I made this on a bus, so you'll have to excuse me. It was not my best art, but it was completed on like a 8-hour bus ride on the way to the protest. So it was really wild. And the message that she asked for is they sent us, and it says no DAPL. And this is from the Oseti Sakowin Camp 2016, no DAPL. And yeah, so the public art, you know, I had to be ready to let it go and for it to then live on. So this is a banner that has gone on, next slide, to of course be there for the EIS statement, but then to also go, like Joy Braun's daughter took it to DC with other organizers. And at the time, you know, it was really powerful because she hadn't accepted, I think, yet wearing her mother's beret, but it was incredible to have talked to her, for example, then, and then to see her holding the banner and wearing this incredible kind of baton in the beret and meeting others, family members. So public art can be such a healing way. This is one of the most important art pieces that I feel like I've ever been a part of. And so it's such an honor to be an ally through our work. And I also, just another element is to think about how that this is a spiritual thing for some people. So asking, like, for example, I didn't paint eyes, or I thought or made certain like thoughts or like prayers when I was thinking about it. So do what you're comfortable with as an artist or as a person, but just know that there's like a cultural context that can be very powerful and meaningful to people along the way. So thank you for having me. And I'm sorry I went over time. Double my time over, sorry. And this is an example of the Minnesota chapter folding fish, which is a perfect handoff, I think, for the next segment. So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Whitney. And I think Jeanette said in one of the comments, indeed, Whitney, art helps show that another world is possible and urgent. And I love that part. And so now we're going to talk about art that we can all participate in, no matter where you are in the country. It will all be coming together. I'm going to turn it over to Jadine to share more.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is Jadine Sanada. I use she, her pronouns. I live on Ho-Chunk lands in Madison, Wisconsin. And yeah, I'm here to talk a little bit about a really perfect overlap between a lot of the different things that we have heard today. So obviously there are really big problems that we need to fix, and there are solutions in all of us. And I think that's something that's really important that has been shown many times, and Whitney was really talking about this as well, is just the importance of like creativity and like coming together as a community in ways that are positive to like give us energy as we're doing this really hard work to fight for justice in every format. And so really excited to share with you all this campaign that many of us have been working on over the last couple months and will continue for about a month more. And this is the Fish for the Future campaign. And so we are embarking on an adventure to try and set the world record for largest collection of origami fish. And the idea here is to be doing an activity that is a way to be talking about the issues that we're facing. So the importance of protecting the Great Lakes, the importance of climate justice, tribal justice, tribal sovereignty, and at the same time doing an activity that is fun and that's accessible and that can bring in more people that might not already know about Line 5 or might not look your way when you say, hey, like, can I tell you about this environmental climate justice issue that's really important? I have seen so far a bunch of like schools, different church and religious groups. I've heard of senior centers and different places where people are getting really involved in this activity, either folding fish or decorating fish, and being able to talk to each other at the same time about protecting the Great Lakes and doing all of this really important work. And so wanted to share a couple of photos of events and activities that have happened so far. I won't talk about all of them, but in the bottom left of the screen, I hope it's the bottom left of your screen, was actually last weekend in Milwaukee. There was an event happening where the Urban Ecology Center, which is a wonderful group in Milwaukee, was hosting a fishing day to teach youth how to fish in the river. And then right nearby, we were set up making and decorating some fish and talking about, you know, the water is really important for fish. The water is really important for all of us. And this is a way that you can protect it and be a part of, as again, Whitney was saying, creating this future that we want to see and building a positive vision. Because I think, especially right now, it's really hard to feel upbeat and positive when there's so much happening, especially at the federal level. And it's important to know that we can do this creation ourselves and sustain ourselves by building community and maintaining these strong relationships. So this is the activity that we're embarking on. I would encourage everybody to participate. It has been really fun to learn how to make these fish. And sometimes it takes a little practice, but there are some easier versions as well. The current world record is 18,303, which is a lot of fish. And we've already got more than 5,000 sent in already as of, I think, just last week, which is really exciting. And there have been thousands more that people have pledged from everywhere across the country and actually even outside of the country, which is really cool. So obviously this issue is impacting directly in the Great Lakes region, and obviously things like justice and especially climate justice are impacting everybody around the world. I know there are people here from all across the country. I was seeing some states come in, and so this is a great opportunity to have some friends over, talk to your neighbors, and share a fun activity. It's pretty low commitment, but a way to be talking about these things that really matter and building this future that we want to be living in. I think the one other thing that I will add here is that as this movement is building, we actually have an opportunity to fold fish together tomorrow. And that'll be online at 12:30 Central Time. So if anybody wants to hop on, it'll be a community space. I think they've been pretty nice, and they'll just have the opportunity to chat with others and fold some fish together. I think an important aspect of winning in the long run is working together and knowing each other now. And so our hope is that this project can help us do that. So that's my little wrap up. We can send out some more information on this campaign in a follow-up email. I think also in the bottom little ticker banner on here, there's a short link that you all can follow, or you can Google Fish for the Future, I think .org, and you can find our website. But for now, I think I'll pass it back to Natalie for a Q&A. So if any of you all have had questions that have come up through any of our amazing speakers so far, feel free to pop those into the chat wherever you're watching.
Thanks, Jadine. I didn't know how to do any type of origami folding before I started this, and it's been fun to get to learn a new skill through this. And I think what you were saying, such a enjoyable way to be building relationships with others and being in community, which we know is also part of our long-term work together. So please put any questions in the chats where you're watching. I know there was one question I saw earlier. I think this is about the tunnel, so it will go to you, Anne. I heard you mentioned the Trump administration was trying to build the tunnel. What are we going to do about it? What should we do with that information?
Well, thanks. It's a really good question. What we will continue to fight against the tunnel at all levels, but right now our focus is going to be on the decision making in front of the state of Michigan, which is why we're asking you to call Governor Whitmer. The state of Michigan has the authority to say no to this tunnel. And that is what we're trying to do right now by getting the permit proposed for this tunnel denied. There are so many reasons to deny the permit. We will also continue to ask for the administration, the Army Corps of Engineers, we will build the record there to make sure that they understand and have on hand all of the reasons why this is not a good idea and why it's environmentally harmful, why it's illegal, we believe, and we will pursue at every level. And I want to say there's an incredibly broad group of people who are working on this. Some of the primary leaders are the tribal nations in Michigan, who have been in the forefront and told the Army Corps that they declined to cooperate with them on the tunnel proposal. They will continue to have their input in, but they're not going to give the Army Corps an excuse to claim that the tribes have been on board with this.
Thanks, Anne, for sharing those important details. I'm going to ask one question for Jadine, and I get this one as I've been talking with folks about fish. When should people mail their fish in by, and where should they mail them?
That is a great question. We are collecting all of the fish at the Sierra Club Wisconsin office in Madison. That information will be on the website, or you can just Google us. And then the date that we're going to cut this off at is June 5th, so that we can do a bunch of counting. There will be, I think, a really fun celebration and gallery style opening this summer, so keep your eye out for information there. Yeah, the fish will be eventually making their way to decision makers to tell them we don't want line 5, which was a very long answer, but June 5th and in Madison, Wisconsin.
Thanks, Jadine. I think we have a question that's come in. Anyone could take it, maybe Anne again. So on YouTube, Hope Rises has asked, does it help to call if you don't live in Michigan?
Yes, it does, because we have seen that Governor Whitmer has an increasingly high profile around the country. And she needs to know that she's hurting her own reputation by not standing up for what she had originally called for, which was shutting down Line 5. Building the tunnel is just an excuse to keep Line 5 running. So, and recognize that right now, fighting against the Trump administration is a nationwide effort, and pushing back on their efforts to cram through really bad projects that just increase the use of oil or continue the use of oil and gas indefinitely is unacceptable. So calling from wherever you are, make sure to tell them where you're calling from, and tell Governor Whitmer you believe this should be done away with, no permit for the tunnel. Great question.
Yeah, I think we have time for one or two more. I'll open up for whoever wants to jump in and answer this one, or maybe two people do. folks have been fighting this campaign across Line 5 in Wisconsin and Michigan for a long time. It's been a long slog. What motivates you to stay in this work and to keep going? Anyone want to take that?
I can answer what keeps me going. I personally feel like I mentioned something in the talk, I think, about spiritual allyship. And so, although Sierra Club, of course, is not a religious organization, I started my organizing in interfaith organizing and at a local organization here. And so, a lot of the work that we're doing, I take it as an understanding for like Dakota people, for Anishinaabe people or Ojibwe people, that this is about yes, of course, protecting water, but it's not just a campaign. It's a very like deeply spiritual thing that people are working on. It's like a must for their way of life. So I try to approach this work as if I really believe that, you know, is a deep personal meaning, then it's not just a campaign. It's a very deep like personal commitment that I am making as an ally to Native people. To uphold like what their wishes are. So that kind of keeps me going, is following the leadership of Native people and also attaching it to my deeper whys as a person.
Thanks, Whitney. I think that's so important for many of us to hear. And Joe, I saw you came off mute too. Do you want to answer this question?
Well, yes, I'll I think what keeps me going on being a water protector is here where I live. We have a unique position where it was our ancestors that was thinking about us in 1854 when they signed the treaty. That was developed after our forced removal in 1850. As a result of that, it was the Treaty of 1854 was signed by Chief Buffalo and his dignitaries, as well as 88 other clansmen, head of clans. All signed that, and that's from Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. All these tribes signed that Treaty of 1854, and it's going to take a process. It's going to take a process. Our legal standing with our treaty was reaffirmed several years ago when we were being forced to pay taxes, put back on the tax rolls here on the reservation. We had the insight that and belief that the Treaty of 1854 gave us that permanent homeland without fear of forced removal, which included paying taxes. Because if you don't pay your taxes, what does the government do? They can come in and take your home. They can take everything. So, you know, when these treaties are interpreted, what they've had to do is they've had to go back and think of how our ancestors thought, their thought process back then. They had no idea what taxes were, but yet they still went ahead and did the deals. And a lot of these deals, they were sideways deals. A lot of it was done with alcohol. Unfortunately, there was a lot of ways for people to get our land that we have, not just here, but across the country. And so the way to do it is get rid of the Indians. Well, we're still here, and that's still a problem for a lot of people. It's the treaties that ultimately, without that will help us all. that will help us all. We have a lot of allies that believe the same. Without us having the treaties, without the tribal treaties and the nations treaties, they would roughshod over everybody. And it's because of these that they haven't been able to. And of course, our fear as indigenous people is we're worried about what Trump's going to do with us. He feels that our allegiance is to the tribe. It's not to the nation. And therefore, how can we be classified as citizens? And I've had two instances just recently in the last several months where crossing the border, going to Canada is okay. Coming back, the second time it was much easier because we crossed from Walpole Island, which we were going back into First Nations territory, and of course we have our tribal IDs. We showed them at the border, and as long as we were going from their home to our home, we were okay. This time around, we didn't get detained, which I was very thankful for. But I got to keep fighting for the water. I got to keep fighting for that seventh generation, just as Chief Buffalo and his entourage thought about the 7 generations to come after them. And, if we use it all up, there's not going to be anything left for the next generation coming up or that 7th generation. So I'll be here until I take my last breath, doing what I can to protect the water, protect the sacred. Absolutely. Thank you. Jimmy Gwitch.
Thank you, Joe. There's a question in the chat around how to support the Bad River Band's legal efforts to remove Line 5, and we've put in the chat that everyone can see a link where you can do a donation to support that legal fight, to continue to stand with folks on the front lines in the Bad River Band. So I think we're at time now. So thank you everyone for joining us live. For folks watching in the future, thank you for joining then. We hope this was informative and motivating for you. We hope you make that call to the Governor Whitmer tonight, and then also you join us in the Fish for the Future campaign, and in any other local organizing that's going on near you. Thank you, everyone.
Jimmy Gwitch.